No conversation, no items. I'd asked somebody, be happy to entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Gary moved and Deb second. No discussion, please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, motion passes. First item on the agenda, Board President's report, committee updates. So first, we're going to start with Mr. Cravens. And
As he's coming up, I like the pace so far of this meeting. Let's keep it going. Because I'm going to take some time with the data. The data's going to take a while, so.
Well, very good. I'm just going to do introductions, and I'm going to be silent. We have a guest, two guests, very important. Shelley Tarter is a continuous learning coach at the high school, and she's instrumental resource to our teachers there using technology implementation. And then we have Deb McMurray here from Apple, and she's got an exciting award to present to us. So I will turn the floor over to these two ladies.
Great, thank you, Jason. And thank you all for having me here tonight. Just to give a little background, as Jason said, my name is Deb McMurray, and I am the K-12 account executive. I work with school districts across western Missouri. And tonight I'm here to present to Joplin High School the Apple Distinguished School Award for the second time, and that's quite an honor. We're very pleased to have Joplin High School as one of our distinguished programs. And I'd like to start out just by giving you a quick overview of exactly what that means and what that program is about. So the application, or the recognition program is an application-only by invitation program. So there are about 200 or so districts worldwide that participate in this program. So it's a pretty exclusive program, and as I said, it is an invitation only, which means that even if the district or school has been invited, they still have to go through the application process and be approved and accepted. There are what we call 5 best practices that we are criteria for excellence that every school or program is measured against, and we'll talk a little bit about what those are. And Shelley will share with you the application process, which is through a book, creating an iBook book, and she's going to walk through that, and she'll share with you what those 5 best practices are as well at that time. However, some of the overarching goals, and I'm just going to read this to you real quickly here. What we look for are centers of innovation, leadership, and educational excellence that demonstrate Apple's vision of exemplary learning environments. And that's really what we see happening at Joplin High School. So at this time, what I'd like to do is go ahead and bring up the application that was submitted by the district.
It was created in iBooks, which is a software program that is on the Apple computers that our students have access to as well. So our students would be able to create iBooks and publish them on the iBook store.
So just give me a moment here.
So was this created by a student or by?
This was actually created by me.
I
Okay.
think maybe the
Along
Apple
with some
TV
help.
went to sleep.
You got the remote?
I do have the remote. Excuse me, just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Oh, and it's, would you mind maybe just switching back to the source real quick and see if we can fix it? It's a pretty purple, but not quite the look we're going for.
I'd like to get home in time for the debate.
There we go.
I know they were having a gathering tonight.
Give me a moment here.
I don't watch sports with Gatling.
We could watch ESPN while we're waiting.
Unless
There
we
we
fix
go.
that firewall.
Yeah.
Actually, signed on.
Ta-da.
Certificate for Ruby.
I do like it when the technology works.
So
It's always
as-
helpful.
As Deb mentioned, there are 5 tenets that Apple looks at when they're trying to find schools that are Apple distinguished. So one of the tenets is visionary leadership. So then we went into Carrie, Dr. Sakata, who is our leader at the high school. Carrie's been very implemental in the one-to-one that we've had at the high school, making sure that the teachers are using it to teach and that it's not just another piece of equipment. And then going along with that, we have shared leadership. So it's not just coming from Dr. Saketa, it's coming from the students as well, with student council, with our student clubs that we have, along with our principals and our admin at FTC. Another tenet is community engagement. So how are we, bringing the community into what we're doing here at the school? So some of the things that we linked were our annual community brochure, our superintendent's annual community report, and then also we looked at our Facebook, our Joplin High School Facebook page, and then our Joplin High School Twitter page, and then also any types of other communication that we put out to the public. And then going right along with that is the technology that we have at the high school, that we have support. So we have support at the admin level, we also have support at the building level with our building techs, and then we also have support with our continuous learning coaches at the high school. Then we have innovative teaching and learning, or learning and teaching, and that goes into our career pathways that we provide at the high school. So the kids can choose their pathway, and then their high school career is going to be designed around that pathway.
And that is the second tenet.
That is the second tenet.
Correct.
Thank you, Deb.
Mhm.
And then along with that also went our 4 tenets that we have as a district, that we are competency-based, we have learner-owned, the learning can happen at any time, anywhere, and that the learning is also personalized. Another tenet is ongoing professional development. And at the high school right now, we have 2 Apple Foundations trainer, my being one of them, and then Mr. Chris Young, who teaches French at the high school. So we'll be guiding the teachers at the high school through the new Apple softwares that are on the laptops that our students have, which would be Keynote, Pages, Numbers, iBook, and iAuthor, so that our students are going to be able to create these fancy books as well, the interactive books. And then we also have compelling evidence of success. So how has the technology helped us and helped our students? So we looked at our graduation rate. We looked at, and that's kind of, I don't have my glasses on, I can't really read some of that.
It is.
We looked at
Increased every
our
year.
scores. We looked at our ACT scores. We looked at our SAT scores. We looked at our ASVAB scores. And we looked at our dual credits and how are our kids performing in those areas as well. And then the last tenet is the flexible learning environment, and we definitely have that at the high school. We have our think tanks, we have our learning stairs, we have our black box, we have our flexible classrooms that have the doors that swing open that can go into the open spaces. So we definitely had the evidence of our flexible learning environment.
Thank you, Shelley. And what I'd like to make note of is this book, for those schools that are selected as an Apple Distinguished School, they are available in what's called the iBook store for anybody to download and review. So this is something that other districts around the world, and you yourselves, if you are interested in downloading the book and looking at it more closely, I would encourage you to do so. You just need a device like a Mac or an iOS device of some kind to be able to do so. So at this time, I think if we can maybe step out over here, I'd like to present the awards to Mr. Koch and Dr. Saketa.
By the way, I don't know if it was Dr. Saketa or me that was the eagle. It said both of our names. I don't know which. It was probably you.
That's how I wake up.
I see.
That's what you look like.
When you brush your teeth, it goes away. I see.
One thing that Deb didn't mention is that along with this, we also get to host an Apple event at the high school, so that's something that we're looking at, and then we'll have other districts come in and look at what we're doing, so. Can you hear me okay?
So on behalf of Apple and myself as an Apple representative, I'd like to thank you all for the hard work that you're doing to really ensure that students are having a personalized learning environment and engaging environment to help them with their success both in their high school career and in their career pathways as they move forward through whether they go to higher education or directly into a career. So thank you very much, and it's my honor to present to you the Apple Distinguished School Award. And maybe we can
Let's unroll the banner.
unroll the
I
banner.
was going to say, that should be, picture should be.
Oh, nice.
And the tech department has
There we
already
go.
requested, Eric, that it be displayed up above the tech department. The banner.
How about that? Can we get a picture of that?
Very nice.
There you
All
go.
right, there we go. Now,
There we go.
Kelly, can you come and take one more picture, please? This one we can get the banner too. There we go. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming and sharing it with us.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you in another
where is
3
that?
years.
Yeah, two. Good news.
Oh,
No, they're not.
It's 2 years.
it's down to 2.
The row of lights right above us.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick note, I want to say very much a thank you to our teachers. They're the ones that have done this. Shelley and her crew has helped, and the people with the technology department and make it work every day. But the teachers have really put a lot of work in. I appreciate their work.
Share our appreciation. Thank you.
Nice, yeah.
All right. Okay. We'll move on to the Finance Committee. Deb?
We met and talked about one thing Dr. Ritter would like for us to do is form a committee of CPAs balanced between female and male to really take a hard look at finances and spending. Dr. Ritter shared that he feels that each board member is committed to improving salaries to make us the district of choice. And so there'll be a committee formed of CPAs to take a good hard look at our spending practices and to see where we could maybe come up with some funds to increase salaries for everyone.
Okay. I think the question, and I think Paul may still be working on it, we're trying to get our arms around what qualifications, how much time is involved, what would we be asking them to do so that when we have people volunteer, they know what they're signing up for.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And Paul said he'd be contacting some CPAs later this month.
Okay.
And that if anybody, if you had any recommendations or for a CPA who might be good to be on the committee, to let
Okay.
Dr. Ritter or him know.
excellent. Will do. Okay. Thank you. Policy Committee?
Yes, we met. There are policies on the agenda, but one thing, just to alert the board members, that we had quite a few policies we were rescinding 2 and expanding 2 other policies. We decided to break those out to allow for more time from the board members to look at those. So those new policies will come out with mid-cycle bill and give you time to look at them before the January meeting.
Okay. Thank you. It's always helpful when we got a little more time because there's a lot of data to go through. Speaking of data, Data Analysis Committee, we didn't meet. What you're going to see tonight, we helped devise what should be added to the presentation in the comparable districts, and that we're going to see it tonight for the first time as well, but there's plenty of data for us all to enjoy.
What's going to happen tonight when we get that presentation is that basically it's going to be the data. There's not going to be any kind of analysis, and then after you see the data is going to go to this committee, and that's where the analysis is going to start. And so that's really what's going to happen. So we'll have that conversation in January, so, okay. So,
Brings it up to you.
yes. this is going to be a conversation with the board as far as sharing data that we've come up with. There's about 46 slides. Will have seen some of them, so we'll just kind of flash through those, just to kind of remind you of that information, but it is one package. I do want you to know that my intention at this time is that this data is going to inform us really well, okay? And it's going to be informing the community, informing internal, external community, our staff, and the board, okay? So the intent is for everybody to get this data. So you need to understand then, after this conversation tonight, I am going to be going to the sites. I'm going to be presenting this information to the sites. I'm going to be presenting it to the teachers as well as to the parents, any PTOs that are out there. And then eventually what happens when I do that is that eventually it goes out to the community, and then the community starts inviting. And so basically, I will be the face of the district, but this is critical data. And I think you're going to be surprised by some of this data. People always are, okay? And so this is going to be broken up into two parts, where I'm going to be presenting the performance data as well as other district data. And then Mr. Manus is going to be sharing his design discoveries as well as the frequent voter survey as well as parent survey. And he and I decided to do the parent survey along with the frequent voter survey, because the frequent voter survey was giving us a pretty clear indication. And then the parent survey really was something that we wanted to do, even though he was doing the design and I had my parent form. It confirmed some of our findings as well. So on that note, what I'd like to do is really start with some major challenges to kind of share with you. And so what we have here really for tonight, the vision for tonight is to develop a strategic plan that will lead the community to support students for the next 5 to 10 years. Now, with this, what I think is critical in Joplin, usually it's a 5-year focus. This needs to be a 10-year focus, because this is going to take some time. This is going to need to be a persistent, slow trek movement, okay? And so what's going to have to happen tonight is stop. We stop right here and we move forward. We don't look back. When you look back, we still remain victims. We still act like in fear. We still working within blame. So really, we're talking about moving forward for the next 5 to 10 years. That's the vision. Next. The mission is to build a culture of improvement rooted in rich data. Okay, so the data tonight may not be all of it. We took out about half of it, believe it or not. And so we have plenty data. Now we need to make it very rich data so we can be focused on the future. Next. So the goal then tonight is for the Board of Education and the community, to inform both of you, and then eventually develop what I would call a baseline data, okay, to develop the strategic plan. So you're going to kind of get a feel of where that focus is going to be, all right, from the data as we present it, and you're going to make, by the end of the night, I think you're going to have a sense. And then the data analysis team, part of the board, will probably walk away with a pretty good feel for it. That's what you should have by the end of the night tonight. Okay, so one of the things that a good friend of mine, who's really kind of the guru on improvement and on quality, high quality in any kind of business, and he's done a lot of work with the Boeings, with Xerox, all those types, IBM, and so I became an examiner under him. And this is his quote on empowerment. It's a critical one, and this is really where we need to turn this system upside down. Okay. We need to be giving people the authority and responsibility to make decisions and take actions. Empowerment results in decisions being made closest to the front line, closest to that child, okay, where work-related knowledge and understanding reside. The key to this statement right here is the expertise is in that classroom, not in my office or at the board table. And we need to know and we need to learn from that experience, okay? And that's going to be extremely difficult to change that culture, okay? A top-down culture to basically a bottom-up culture, and a service culture, moving from a control culture to a service culture. That's what really this is saying right here. Next. So I gave you earlier in the year a kind of a baseline analysis of driving triad of high-performing systems. And that just to remind you, and you have it in your folder as far as what that looks like, okay? And so it has the customer focus, it has the leadership focus and strategic plan focus, okay? By the way, I almost forgot, in your folder, I gave you the reminder of the 3 goals that you gave me as a superintendent, and we're well on our way. Okay, so you can see the first thing is to develop a strategic plan. That's what tonight's all about. Okay, the second goal is to basically develop a culture of improvement. That's what I just explained to you. We've got to create that culture, and it's an upside-down approach compared to where we were at currently and in the past. Okay, and the last thing is to be very efficient and effective. And our taxpayers, our patrons are giving us that message very clearly. All right, it's interesting when you have a culture of improvement, that doesn't seem to be a concern as much as it is when you don't have that culture of improvement. Okay, so with those 3 baselines, we had some major challenges. Okay, under leadership, it was basically making sure that the Joplin school system has been focused, it's been focused on recovery over the last 4 years. Now we need to shift it to a culture of improvement and innovation. Okay, next. And then under strategic planning, we're really doing that tonight. We're really listening to the community, what the community wants for its children, both internally and externally. But the bottom line is the community needs to be in charge of their children, not the state or the federal government. ESSA has given us that opportunity. I think in my first read of it, this really opens us up to be able to do what Joplin wants for its kids. The last one. The 4 questions there is really what it's all about. Okay, so really into customer focus. How much does the district understand the community it serves? Man, we got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of surprises. Okay, number 2, how well does the community know its education system? It's pretty obvious that the community doesn't know, and they want to know, by the way, from the feedback we're getting. Number 3, how much does the district support its key workers? Boy, we have a lot of work to do there, and that's going to be really one of the things that we're sensing as a key goal for the district. The last one, number 4, how organized is the system in its work to respond to its community? A lot of work there, especially around the whole area of communication. All right, next. So what we're beginning to sense in looking at this data as a leadership team, also from Mr. Manus's work and myself, and you can kind of see this a little bit in the baseline analysis of the driving triad, we really had 3 goals, and I try to keep it as simple as possible. Student readiness, all right? What are the kids looking like coming into kindergarten? How ready were they? How ready are the kids going into 4th grade? How ready are kids going into 6th grade? Okay, and we're going to have some conversation, or you're going to see some definitions that we're working on, and we can shape those. Okay, and then and really going into 9th grade, critical piece there, and then also going into life, college and career at the end of their K-12 experience, and then so we're really talking about the readiness, then the learner support. We've toyed a little bit with classroom support, teacher support. It really does come down to learner support. And understanding that technology, textbooks, whatever it is more of a support item than a driving item, okay? And so we need to keep that in mind. But there's a number of other things that we need to look at as far as learner support, and you're going to see some of that data tonight. The effective and efficient culture, the bottom line, as we're looking at this data tonight, keep in mind that it's a balance between being effective and efficient. It doesn't mean we need to be more efficient, less effective. It's a balance. And so when you tend to be more efficient, too efficient, or almost deficient, you're starting to starve the system. And when you're starving the system, then eventually the effectiveness goes away. And you burn people out, and when you burn people out, they leave, okay? And I don't want to say die, but it comes close to that. So anyway, those are the 3 goals we're picking up. We may be adjusting those. I'm sensing not so much. Next. Okay, so the districts we are using to help us understand where we're at and compare, we've already been through this, and you can see those. Next. Demographic data. Next. You've already seen this as far as enrollment data. It kind of gives you a feel give to you on the bottom down there. A suburban district. Okay, you're going to see, as we go through these slides, you're going to see a difference here, and I've seen this as a superintendent, so it's in your hands, and really the community can get their hands on it as well. And so there's a couple definitions of states, okay? A suburban district serving a residential community within commuting distance of a city, okay? So there really isn't an urban center in those communities. In an urban district, it's really serving a city or densely populated area that really has a lot more corporate centers, also chambers, those different types of things that really tend to be the core of that community. Okay, urban districts include, in this situation, Joplin, Springfield, Columbia, and Jefferson City. Okay? Next. Free and reduced rate, lunch rate, I think you can see what those are, and we spelled it out as the board gave us feedback in that committee to make sure that we have the contiguous districts listed as well. And so that's for your student-to-teacher ratio. Find this interesting. Now, that's going to be what I'm seeing as something that Joplin needs to wake up on, all right? And this, by the way, this is information coming from DESE. Again, it gives that information that we talked about earlier with the difference between the suburbia and urban. Next. All right, and you can see our student-teacher ratio is higher than any of the comparable districts. So in other words, we have larger class sizes. Now, in the parent survey that we're going to talk about later, that's a concern, all right? And we didn't survey the teachers. We're going to do that later. That's probably going to be a teacher concern as well, okay? Next slide. When you look at the contiguous districts, you can see that it's pretty significant. When you talk about 21 to 19, that's 2 out of 21. That's about a little over 5%. That's quite a bit when you look across the whole district. So that is a significant issue that we need to be paying attention to, okay? So a lot of people are going to say, well, you're getting more bang for your buck. I'm going to say the teachers are going to say, no, you're getting a lot more work out of us, and we're tired, okay? And so anyway, that's something to keep in mind. Next. So data to support student readiness now. Here's readiness. Ensuring students are prepared physically, now notice the words here, physically, intellectually, and socially, all right? We're talking about some soft skills there as well as physical, all right? To take on the challenge of the next level of learning, okay? Next. All right, here's parents as teachers, all right? This slide just came in today. I don't know it that well. Mark's with us and by the way, as we go along, if you have questions of clarification, that's fine. If you have thoughts, I don't want to hear them right now, okay? But as far as clarification or questions of clarification, that'd be great, okay? Not that I'm insulting your thinking. I just want to make sure that you could get all the data without trying to, okay? Any questions on this slide here? Really what we're looking at is in the red, help me, Mark. What's the red?
The red are the total number of students that we served in 1 year, at the end of the year invoice, high needs.
Okay, I'm talking about on the far right, the total family.
Again, that is the total number of students served, including those that are not considered high needs.
Okay.
88.7% of that is high needs. The blue is the non-high needs.
How many, were there a number of families we were not able to serve because of lack of numbers?
And we had families that had requested services, but lack of resources and funding were not able to, and that's what the waiting list at the bottom is representative of, the 210 children that we did not serve because of that.
Art, can you define high needs?
Yeah, what does high needs
The
mean?
high needs is based upon, again, the free and reduced accounts and also just the poverty that we have within the district.
So free
Each
reduced
one-
lunch
it
is high
basically
needs.
is, yeah.
And delays indicated,
staff.
how'd you define that? Delays indicated?
It's through our screening that the PAT provides.
So they're not falling in the normal range on the screening?
Right.
Below normal?
Exactly.
Okay.
Can you answer a question? The blue wedge are non-high need students that were served?
Yes, that were eligible.
Okay, and so why do we have those if there's a waiting list of high need students?
Well, the way the program's set up is that we do have families that still meet that criterion, and we do dedicate some of the time to that. We don't want to disregard that particular population, but as you can see, the majority of our service and time is to high needs.
Well, I get that, but why would you have anybody on a waiting list that's a high need person if there's a non-high need?
No, the waiting list, I don't believe, has,
Yeah, it
Has it
does
been
way
identified?
beyond the invoicing. It's all based upon, they give us a dedicated amount of funds to begin the year.
So you don't have a physical waiting list of a specific name of a
No.
specific?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
No.
Never mind. I get
okay,
it.
stay here for a second. Next slide. All right, this is the preschool enrollment. And what we have here again is the comparable districts and their numbers. And really what we have included in that is your special ed part of that early childhood or preschool enrollment. And so that's really what that information is, okay? Any questions on that for clarification? Okay, so then when you look at, go to the next slide. Thank you. When you go to the next slide, we have attendance, and that's a significant factor when we start talking about engagement and readiness. And so one thing that I just want to point out there as far as a data point that we're doing some drilling down on, and that, of course, we shared that with you previously, and that's a high school. The high school numbers are the ones that are impacting that. And we're seeing some improvement in that, but that's our main concern. Next slide. Okay, so this is the contiguous district slide as far as their attendance is concerned. Okay, next slide. Now what we're going to present here is we're going to be talking about assessment, and there's just for your information, the difference between math testing and the Northwest Evaluation Assessment. And really, they both are aligned with the Missouri standards. The key difference is immediate turnaround and formative or frequency related to the testing by Northwest Evaluation Assessment, whereas the Missouri assessment is really a one-time summative type of thing. Major differences, and also very late in getting the information. And really, with ESSA coming forward, MAP needs to go away as much as we can just kind of put it down on the poll. The authentic assessments including the Northwest Evaluation Assessment needs to start taking priority in our district. That way we're going to be able to support the classroom a lot better. I think the MAP test gets in the way of doing that. So I just want to point those differences. Next. Okay, you've seen this. This is the English language arts. And so don't want to labor too much on that. That's old history. Math, you can see that. We have a major concern with math and doing some work on that. And I think we're finding just a little bit of heads up on that it's more about literacy and math, and also foundation of math in many of our elementary teachers. Don't want to blame any. The science piece, again, you've seen this before. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Math proficiency. What you have there is, you asked for this one in the data team. We brought it together. And so don't see red as a problem. Red is reading. So look at the boxes down below, and it explains the difference. And what it does is it gives percentage of proficient or advanced, okay? And it shows, and you can compare along with our contiguous districts, okay? And so you can see that data. And that's data we're going to be following as we go along and being able to compare. Next. All right, this is kindergarten readiness, and we're still defining kindergarten readiness, but these are things that we're using. And what we're really, when you really look at it, you kind of round off the numbers, we're talking about 40% of our kindergartners are not ready for kindergarten when you use this data. As you can see, we're talking about 53% on word readiness, a 64% under reading proficiency at grade level, and that's based on NWEA, and then the math proficiency. By the way, the NWEA is still being, we had some technology issues. There's a number of things we still need to fine tune, so it's becoming better and better, but it's still, I think this second time around, it's been getting to be very good. Okay.
Are all three of those measures by the NWEA?
No.
Or just the reading proficiency?
Just the reading proficiency. Yep. Okay. Good question. All right. Then we have the NWEA as you can see, where we have it across all grade levels. And that's for your information. And we're going to be tracking that. And really, what's kind of interesting, when the students get used to it, the students track it better than, and that's what we want. The students track it better than the teachers a lot of times, because they want to know right away how they're doing. All right? So then we discussed last time the rate of discipline referrals per 100 students. And really the key thing with the high school there is the tardy sweep is showing its fiber. Let's call it that way. All right? And so we're seeing, and I've seen it, you're seeing the hallways clearing really quick. And so they are teaching from bell to bell now rather than having to wait for kids. So I think this is data that's good for us to know, and we can follow it and see how that's going to take shape. All right, that's the discipline. Then we have the long-term behavior. That's really most of this is out of our hands. It's coming off the streets. I think you as board members may know that. And that's where you get your long-term suspensions because of violent actions on the streets or in the home or wherever it is. And so you may want to note there that Webb City doesn't have any problems. And so anyway, I don't want to say any more than that. It's just awful strange. But this is all coming out of DESI. This is coming out of DESI. And so And so maybe Webb City doesn't have any problems, I don't know. Maybe
Or
that's just-
Langford put together the numbers.
Yeah, yeah, whatever it is, I've never seen a district not have this, but anyway, but it's coming from this. All right. So anyway, fourth and fifth year graduation rates, you've seen this before.
Just
and-
on that long-term behavior chart, when you referred earlier to the urban districts.
Right.
It looks like we're certainly not any worse than any of the other urban districts and better than some.
Springfield, when I was there, they have a lot of problems.
I can see that.
Yeah, there's no question. That the social
So does
service-
Jefferson City, though.
Yep,
That's-
Jefferson City.
We're tied with Lindbergh, so that's.
To be honest with you, those two communities really have a lot of issues going on.
Well, I mean, that's just the first
Neighborhoods-
chart I've seen where we score favorably against the other urban core
Right.
districts.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of good due diligence around family and support here that I think is better. Now, but also I think we have different cultures as far as neighborhoods. So, all right, I don't know. I'm kind of ignorant. I shouldn't be saying it too much here. Anyway, fourth and fifth year graduation rates, we've seen that, so we don't need to spend much time on that, but you can see both, and you can see the comparisons. And basically, my understanding, Joplin's come a long ways, but so has some other districts. I know Springfield's come a long ways. I think we both saw the same amount of improvement, the same amount of years. So under student readiness, then, that's the data we're going to look at, but there's other data that we need to be collecting, and so we're looking at subgroup achievement, kindergarten reading level, the NWE. So we're going to need to continue to collect. And then other data that needs to be looked at, student absence, reasons why students are absent, all grade level readiness indicators, we need to develop those. As I mentioned earlier, comparable districts with the NWEA. NWEA is a common assessment that's being used in Missouri, so we can pull some of comparable data out with that. In fact, I think Carthage, one of the districts locally is using it, maybe two. Then information on health and fitness, that's part of the readiness conversation that we're going to need to pull data on. And then the social skills, employability skills, it's really the soft skills that we're going to need to collect data on. So, okay? All right. So the next thing is, so that's readiness, all right? That's student readiness. The next thing we're going to be looking at is learner support. That's really, think about classroom support here. So creating a team of empowered adults who are student-focused through their actions, resources, and continuous improvement cycles. We struggled with that because really the student should be empowered students / adults / students who are student-focused. So it's really kind of strange. So we left it this way, but we may be changing that language, okay? So that's learner support. All right. So following items, as far as learner support, years of experience of certified staff. Another thing that's a real concern. So we're talking about class size, now we're talking about teacher retention. This is significant. When you have a 10.1, then you look at all the other districts we're looking at, and we're way down compared to everybody else. Now when you look at the contiguous, then we really stand out, which is the next slide. Okay? See, so to me, we have to look and there's several reasons for that, and I think we're going to be able to see some of that as we go through the data tonight, okay? All right, next. All right, this is elementary students to teacher ratio core areas, okay? So this is really Joplin right here, and what we're looking at is the class size, and by the way, in looking at past years, the kindergarten numbers is the lowest it's been in a long time. 19.79, that's the lowest. It should really be around 15 to 18, so that's pretty close. But we have pockets where it's 20, above 20, 23, 24, and then we have some where it's 15. So
And this is 2015 data you're
right.
comparing to.
It's current data. It's as of last week.
Okay.
Okay, see, so you have, so really, Jeff pointed out when he looked at this data on the fourth grade data, okay? Really, if you average that out down at the bottom, it's 22.8, I think is what you came up with. But really, what you got to be careful of when you're looking at that is the larger schools have more kids in a classroom. So really, when you take all the kids and total it out, it is 24.3 5.38, okay? So class size is better this year than it has been in the past. However, we have pockets where there's some concerns in the elementary, but also in the next slide, you're going to see that we have concerns. And really what we're seeing is there's some growth in the city that was not predictable. And so we see East Middle School growing quite a bit over the last year. Okay, so we're going to have to really focus on that and make sure that our class size, we have some class size issues right now at East. And they're the most needy school as well. And so this is really important data for us to have. Now, when you look at the secondary average, the average size per class in core areas really is very good. So as far as when you put it across and you look at it across the board, but again, we have pockets where we have to make some adjustments. Okay? All right. So now we're going to be talking a little bit about support. All right? And so we're trying to define a little bit for you what some of those supports are. When we shared it with the data committee, we tried to put it in a graph, and it was just too confusing. So what we're going to do is just define areas where we see support: paraprofessional, classroom aides, special ed teachers, instructional coach, administration, et cetera, et cetera. So you can read that and discover that on your own. So our numbers then, when you look at it across the board, as far as elementary, middle school, high school numbers, and looking at support, you can kind of see there is a little bit of movement we're going to have to make, similar to what we saw with class sizes, okay? So this data does help us be able to identify and see the need of the overall system, okay?
So
All right.
can I just ask, the higher numbers, that means there's more staff?
More support,
More
yes.
support, okay.
More support. And then we can drill down and turn to and find out if they're paraprofessionals or if they're classroom aides, et cetera, at each one of these sites. Okay, so that's what, so that list of definitions, that really is, so Cecil Floyd has 19.4 support staff, okay? And those are broken out by those different definitions we have here on, okay?
Is that I want to make sure I understand that, Norm. The higher the number, the more support, or the higher number, the less support?
The higher the number means there's more support.
Isn't that saying the ratio of students to support? And so wouldn't,
Oh,
for
I'm
example,
sorry.
Eastmoreland have more
It's
support?
the other way around, I'm sorry.
And Kelsey Norman have less?
I misread
Okay,
that.
I just want to make sure I'm
glad you
understanding.
pointed out the ratio.
That's what I was asking
Yeah.
too,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So Joplin High School has less support when you look at that, okay? Whereas Eastmoreland has very good support, okay? Good point, thank you for catching that. Students in special education, we are doing an analysis of that, and this kind of gives you a quick flavor of what that's looking like as far as percentage of students in special education. And so I think that's an indicator of something that we need to do some drilling down on to see. We had a visit, it was a very favorable visit by the DESE special ed team. But either way, I think this is a significant thing that we need to look at. All right, percentage of students that are ELL. Missouri average is 3.25. Joplin's right at 3, so we're pretty close to the average. This is one of the smallest numbers that I've ever seen in my experience, okay, over the last 3 to 4 districts.
What is the ELL?
EL is English language learners. In other words, they have different languages as their primary language. We have 26, somebody? I think it's 26 different languages. And so that's significant. Okay, volunteers, we're still trying to get our hands around volunteers. Really, we are talking about 2 types of volunteers. One type of volunteer is a volunteer that's working directly with kids. And then we have another volunteer that's basically working with the school, okay? And we do keep track of that, all right? However, we can't say it's absolute. I'll never say that about volunteers because you have people who may not be reported. For instance, we may have mothers helping their daughters teach. I've run across that 4 times this year, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. They just love their daughters, and their daughters love her. Anyway, and they're all good teachers. But I don't know if they're counting volunteers or not, but they're there every day.
Hey, Norma, it says this data has been collected since July 1st, 15 through Volgistics. Did we have a method for collecting data prior to that?
Yeah, we did.
This is a new program, though? Or not?
No, I think we've had this. This is just from July 1 to now. This data is, okay? To keep it in the current year. Okay, Eric's working hard on this as far as computer equity, and you can see that he's getting it closer and closer. I guess it was not nearly as close as this before, but he knows that that's one of his goals, is to make sure that throughout the district, we have, I think the goal is 3 students to a computer. Is that the goal?
Hopefully.
Two? Two, okay. So anyway, we wanted to share that with you. Now, the next one is really a very important one, very thorough study that Tina and her team have done. They've double-checked it, and I think it's really very powerful. It gives a clear picture of the contiguous districts as well as the comparing districts as far as salaries for teachers at a bachelor's level, 10 years experience, and 30 years experience. Are those all bachelor, right?
There's bachelor, master, and doctor.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, there's different columns there. But I mean, in the bachelor, they're all bachelor, yeah. Okay, so you can see that when you look across, for instance, under the bachelor, and you go across, of course, Lindbergh's always going to be kind of crazy. But anyway, you look across there as far as contiguous districts, et cetera, you're going to see, you can kind of get a feel of where Joplin is. But we're going to be sharing with you in the next slide how we're going to compare. Don't go there yet, okay? But you're going to see then, as we go through, that in some cases, the less experienced, lower educated on the salary schedule might get more in some districts, et cetera, et cetera. The thing I want to point out, though, this is salary schedule, okay? And so the next thing we're going to be looking at is salary schedule plus benefits plus pension, okay? So when you turn over, we picked a particular school, Webb City, okay? And for some reason, Webb City keeps popping up. It feels like, I feel like a spider in their web. Anyway, pardon the pun. But anyway, what you see here is a pretty consistent comparison when you're looking at the salary of Webb City and Joplin of $2,000. It's really kind of interesting that it's $2,000. Now, this is total package now, okay? So if you look at salary, it might be a different story. But we're looking at salary, benefits, and pension. Total package, it seems to be a consistent $2,000 at the bachelor level, at the master's level, 10, and at the master's level, 30, okay? $2,000. So when you're looking at that and you're seeing the difference, and by the way, it's indicated there where it's salary, benefits, and then the pension, all right? At the bottom then, when you have Joplin versus Webb City, the deficit between the two, okay, then you're going to begin to see then if a teacher started in Webb City and the same teacher started in Joplin at the same time, a different teacher, but really on the same journey, you're going to find that after 30 years, the Webb City teacher will be making, with the total package, 65, or the cost to the district is about $65,000 more for Webb City, okay? That's the package there. So what we thought we would do then is, as Debbie mentioned earlier, I mean Ms. Ford, sorry about that. Ms. Ford.
That's good.
Yeah, just slap Norm for talking to you. He shouldn't be talking to you. Anyway, the estimated cost then, if we were to come equal to, including benefits and pension, would be $1,261,800. That's just for teachers, okay? So that's a good data figure for us to have in front of us, and it's facts. Now, what we are going to have to face is that these contiguous districts don't like Joplin catching up, and so they're going to try to get above us. But that's right now, this is the facts, okay? So we knew the board was looking for this, and really I think the community needs to know this as well, okay? So now think of 3 things so far: class size, teacher retention, and this. And so you're starting to see a pattern here a little bit. Okay. So with that in mind, here we are, teacher retention. Now, this one surprised staff, and it's surprising teachers as well. A few teachers I've talked to about this. Okay, what's kind of interesting is, as you're looking at this last year, reasons teachers left, okay? They went to other districts. Now, each of these are different. Other districts, other than the contiguous districts, there were 30 of them. 14 retired. 9 of them went to the contiguous districts, okay? 8 of them were leaving the profession. 8 of them because of health or family. 8 of them for other reasons, which probably across the board. And 6 of them for relocation purposes, and then 3 of them for performance, okay? So we have 86 teachers that have left for various reasons, okay? And so we need to continue to drill and find out basically what's driving leaving the profession, what's driving the movement to contiguous districts, what's driving the move to other districts. We need to find out what that is.
Norman, I have a question. It says FY15, 12% staff left. Are the 86 that 12%? So can we say that 12% of our faculty equals 86 positions?
I believe.
Can we say that?
The 12% comes from, there's a little bit of history involved in this explanation, but the 12% really comes from the 86 are teachers only.
Okay.
The 12%, what we use is the number that we pull from DESE, which lists all certified staff. And the reason that we're currently using that number is because to get to the history, we had to use a consistent number. And so we pulled consistently the number from DESE, and that's how we get 12%.
So certified staff could include administration.
Okay.
And for the 2014-15 reasons, do we have reason codes for the other years too?
We do.
I mean, just as long as we can get to it, we don't need it tonight.
Yeah, we do.
Okay,
This is the best data we have for 14-15.
okay.
So we gradually increase what we delved down into as to why teachers were leaving. So this is the best.
Most accurate?
Yeah, most accurate.
Okay.
Why the peak in 13?
I'm sorry?
Why the peak in 13?
Good question.
I think if I.
Don't answer if you don't know.
I'll tell you later.
Yeah. Make sure you're right. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. All right. Ron, is that when you came on the board? No. Anyway.
We'll
The
see
next,
how next year goes.
I see. Anyway, the next one, again, we're looking at teachers, now we're looking at administrators. And these are certified administrators, okay? And these are certified, like I said, certified administrators. And we're talking number of students per administrator, okay? And so the more students per administrator is the more efficiency. It doesn't necessarily mean it's more effective, but it's more efficient. Okay, so for instance, in the first 2 columns there, as it says down below, by the way, that last sentence does not include administrators who are not required to hold a certification. And I think you're going to find that's pretty consistent across all districts as far as numbers, percentages. So in the contiguous districts where you have 203, that means Joplin is more effective as far as number of students per administrator. But when you look at the other urban districts, okay, you can see there's more efficiency there, all right? When you're looking at Springfield, Columbia, and Lindbergh, all
And
right?
does that definition include building level administration and central office
Yes.
administration? All administration?
All certified.
Okay.
I would be.
You would be in that
Yeah, I
number.
would be in that number. No, I wouldn't be in that. Last year's superintendent was in that number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, anyway, either way. All right, good data, good questions. All right, students per certified administrator, this is contiguous districts and how that breaks out, all right? What's kind of interesting, of course, Neosho and Joplin, when you look at free and reduced rates, they were very similar as well. It's kind of interesting, all right? All right. So learner support, as far as data that we need to collect, special ed population by site, quality of technology devices, stipends, extra duty pay, which is not included in the salaries because that was a salary schedule. And then also mobility rate. We need to do an analysis of mobility rate. And so I think that's going to inform us, and that's going to be a good comparison. I don't know if we can get it from other districts. I hope we can. It'll be tough. Future data needs, SPED, instructional expenditures, special ed, engagement with technology. okay? And Eric's working on that. And then recruitment data on how we're recruiting and how successful we are. Okay? All right. So that takes care of that. And now I'm trying to move as fast as I can. All right. Data to support effective and efficient culture. All right? So effective and efficient, I kind of mentioned earlier, is a customer-focused culture that demonstrates responsible management in an effective and efficient manner to add value to the system for the benefit of students, staff, et cetera. I'm going to cut that down considerably because I really think it's more a matter of balance, and we'll make that adjustment. Total cost per student. Here's an interesting data. Remember what I talked to you about earlier with the other data, okay? So we're talking about class size, we're talking about teacher salaries. Guess what? That means our total cost is less, all right? And to me, it's significant when you talk about that and you compare it with everybody else in this range here as far as cost, all right? So one thing, by the way, to note in Lindbergh's numbers, that does not include special ed cost. So theirs is quite a bit higher. Of course, when you saw their salaries and you can understand that it's going to be more expensive. So another factor to consider and keep in mind, keep in front of you as we look through this data as far as efficient and effective. All right, key factor here is assessed valuation of real estate property per student. Real estate property is both home and corporate, remember that, all right? And so this does impact the state funding formula. So what you're going to see when you look at the assessed value per student, you're also going to be seeing a levy comparison. You're going to be seeing, then eventually you're going to be seeing state funding comparison, and it's going to kind of blow your mind a little bit. And so anyway, you go to the next page. You'll see the assessed valuation of real estate property per student by including the contiguous districts, and it's quite a bit different. And really, when you look at the difference really is the corporate property assessed value for Joplin schools. All right. So then the state basic funding per pupil, which I find really interesting. And so if you're on that, everybody on that slide, okay, look at the difference, and it's huge. It's absolutely huge. Okay. And so we have Joplin with state funding of $2,493. And then if you look at the other urban, you're going to see that it's less in Springfield, more in Columbia, and quite a bit less in Jeff City. Okay? And really, a lot of that has to do with the funding formula. Okay? And also the assessed valuation. And part of that funding formula is the free and reduced rate. Okay? And so you can see that the cost per student, most of that money is paid, a lot of that money is being paid by the state to our contiguous districts, okay? Whereas we're not getting the same amount, okay?
Comment on that, Chris. A lot of that is driven by the court's requirement that the total educational funding effort per student has to be equalized. And so where the valuations of an individual district are higher than by court mandate, the state assistant has to be lower.
Yep.
So it's, those two things would always be the case.
Yeah. So really, what's different though in that situation is the state is the one that dictates the amount of money, whereas in our case, it would have to be more local, say, as far as kind of increase in cost per student.
Right, but the point is the court's objective is for the outcome to be equalized regardless of source. So they balance out the capacity of the district with the assistance from the state, because from the court-driven, I mean, these formulas are driven by the courts, basically, and it's, so it is an equalization process.
It is. Yep. But anyway, now the tax rates, you can see that as far as contiguous districts, very close. Springfield's, Columbia, Jeff City's, really the urban levies are much higher, and you saw the cost per student is much higher. All right. So that's what I was trying to point out with Gary just a second ago, Mr. Nodler, is that basically the local control and the local support is more prevalent in a highly assessed situation, assessed value. Okay, so then, the reserve operating fund balances, you've seen this before. I don't think we need to go over that. And as of June 30th, 2015, the contiguous districts, as far as the reserves, and you can see that, and we had that before.
Norm, can I clarify that 22%? That's actual cash we have on hand. That's not counting on any of the errors
Right.
and omissions money
Right.
that we're hoping for.
Nope, that's actual
That's
cash.
not included.
In fact, that came up today, and we knew somebody would ask, so, good, all right.
Yeah,
Follow through with us.
really, in light of the cost of the tornado recovery, that's a remarkable accomplishment.
That is.
That is
Where we were last year.
fantastic.
That's really good. So, hey, by the way, the FEMA conversation really went well. I don't want to say any more than that. I want to take you off. Okay, next thing, historical reserve on operating fund balance. You've seen this before as well, and I thought it needed to be part of our database. Now, the next thing is contracted teacher-student contact minutes per week. This is basically, it shows you how really and really a lot of it has to do with the state requirements. You can see everybody's pretty equal on that. All right? All right.
And Norm, how is that teacher-student contact, is that just number of classroom hours?
Minutes. It's
Number
minutes.
of classroom minutes?
Right. And so really, I think there is some passing time that's included in that, but I'm not quite sure how much that's figured in, but I know that's part of it. All right, and then we have the contracted teacher-student contact minutes per week, okay? So this is really a contract, and again, it's not a whole lot different. But I don't want to point out anything on data any more than I have. Okay, then we have the contracted professional development minutes, okay? And Jeff City, that's an outlier. We're trying to figure that one out. Now, contracted professional development minutes by contiguous districts. And you can see Neosha's way out there. And the reason Neosha's way out there is they always have a half a day Friday for staff development. And so that adds up quite a bit. All right. All right, so additional professional work for pull-out minutes. So this is really professional development, and this is Joplin. And so we have elementary teachers average 6 days a year for professional development, secondary 4.5 days. We knew the board would have, also the community would have interest in that because, when you pull a teacher out, you're basically putting a sub in, it's not the same. So
these are days out of the classroom?
Right.
Okay.
Now, in addition to that, though, we also have the sick days. Well, we listed all the different reasons for it, and it comes down to a number of, where you have teacher absences minutes, and then we have the actual days, and we're looking at, we had the pull out for the professional development, then we have school activity. So really, it's about 7.5 sick leave day. By the way, the average across the country for teachers is 6.5. So there's the difference right there. Okay, the next, right there, this kind of gives you a good picture graphically as to what that looks like, and you can kind of get a sense that most of it is sick leave. Okay, and you can analyze that further. All right. Effective, efficient culture then, the data that's being collected, we need to look at a number of things operationally. Meals served by site and how meals, there's a lot of data around that. Then efficiency rating for transportation, a lot of data around that, ridership, et cetera. The plus deltas analysis around the culture of improvement. The forum feedback that I'm getting with my parent-teacher student forums, that data needs to be collected, as well as the communication data. We're collecting that as well. Future data needs, transportation complaints, we need to chart that and keep track of that. And then also data around transparency and trust. We're going to be doing that through surveys and also through human-centered design, different things like that. And then we have satisfaction, perception, and that's part of those surveys as well. Okay. Then data support for a customer focus. So at this point, I'm going to have Mr. Manus come up, and he's going to walk through his work. And then after that, we'll have some closing remarks, okay? Mr. Manners?
Thank you, Dr. Ritter. Good evening to everybody. First, I'd like to thank all the people that allowed me to come into their classrooms and their living rooms and Starbucks for letting me interview people there. I've spent a great deal of time the last few months in Joplin doing the one-on-one interviews. And the purpose of the one-on-one interviews is to produce a design approach that allows us to, I think, gives us better insight than focus groups and things of that nature to help us start to shape how to better meet teacher needs, parent needs, key stakeholder needs. So this is really the beginning of the process. Even though we've got a lot of work under our belt here, there's still some more to do. And more importantly, establishing a culture of conducting these type of listening activities on a regular basis so that you stay connected to your key stakeholder groups. And I know that Dr. Ritter and his staff are going to make sure that's embedded in the process from here on out. So in the interview process, the design interviews are specifically, the specific approach is to take a look at common experiences that individual groups have with whatever product we're looking at or experience we're looking at. In this case, for teachers, it's taking a look at their day and finding out how, in terms of engaging students, what's the impediments and the supports in place to make that happen. I use the focus groups more for what I call a prototype check than it is for information gathering. That's, in other words, here's what I'm hearing. Does that match some of your experiences that you have? So that's my way of coming back in checks. I also did prototype checks with individual principals and teachers as well. So that mix is part of the interview. It's not quantity as much as it is listening to their common experiences on a day-to-day basis to establish some common themes. And then, of course, we utilize that information to help formulate some quantitative surveys, which we've conducted. And we did decide kind of in the middle of the process to do some additional parent surveys in addition to community surveys. I think that was a good move on our part because it was needed and it really did confirm some things that we're hearing through the process. So what we have left is very important, as well as the development of a teacher survey. I think Dr. Ritter plans on doing that in February, but we'll work on the development of that throughout the next few weeks and ensure that we have the questions asked that we heard through the design process. And we are also, as you'll see a little later on, going to conduct a design process for high school students as well to get some additional information on improving the high school experience for students. So next slide is an overview of the key findings of the design process. And in the design process, you have a design question. So how might we create a classroom that best supports the teacher in providing highly engaging learning experience for students at Joplin schools? So that's the purpose of what we're all doing here, is to make sure that we're successful in engaging the student in the learning process. And some key findings, one thing, it's nice when you interview teachers and listen to them. I always ask the question, reflect on a day that you thought was an exceptionally good day. And 90% of the time they talk about a day when students were highly engaged in the process of learning, and I didn't have any interruptions and things of that nature. So what's really interesting in Joplin is the experience they have. They want to make sure, and this is especially true throughout the district and central office, that it's important to everybody else that is a focus as well. Okay, so when teachers talk to you about preparation time, they're concerned about having the time to focus in on what's going on in their classroom. So if you're going to bring in an initiative to them and put some additional objectives in front of them, they want to make sure it actually pertains to what it is their job is. That's where it best serves them. And a disconnect is an impediment in their mind. So It's important that that's thought of in terms of initiatives that are roll out and things of that nature, because they want the district support and understanding of a common goal and strategy set forth, that they're all in this together, and that these initiatives coming forward aren't impediments to them engaging in their students. So, and that really leads to number 2, which to help engage with students and support teachers, it's important to shift from this top-down, as Dr. Ritter mentioned, this top-down driven initiative to more of a collaborative effort where an authentic teacher voice is heard on a more consistent basis, so that when things are developed, major initiatives, approaches, the teacher voice is heard, and not just in small segments, but truly part of a collaborative effort. That also ties into number 3. As you listen to teachers, they accept goals, accountability, they embrace those sorts of things. What they're needing help in is a common strategy, or a strategy they also have a connection to, that they can say, we're professionals, we have some things that work in our classroom, here's some ideas that you should incorporate in the strategies to achieve the goals. And I think that's something that needs to be part of the culture that's worked on from here on out, to say this is more of a collaborative experience for teachers as well. They have a lot to offer and a lot of good ideas and concepts to share as well. Something I heard is not a lack of clarity on technology, and I think that's important in terms of the expectations around how that's going to be used in an instructional tool, and the equity that exists, knowledge throughout the system of where you're headed, more importantly, a vision that's understood. That seems to be an area that's a little gray, and I know they're working on that right now, so I think that's going to be something that is going to be important in the future. And then something I really heard throughout the process is the respect for the leadership at the site level, and making sure that principals are part of the planning process throughout the district in key initiatives, the strategic planning process that we're embarking on right now. That's a lot of credibility exists there, and a lot of expertise to be tapped in. So from that, I made some recommendations that obviously this annual teacher survey has to be a part of every year experience here, but I would recommend this year comes from Dr. Ritter specifically, and people are reassured that he's going to receive the information. There's a little bit of nervousness around that. That exists in a lot of schools, but we certainly know that it's something that should be addressed. And embedded in that will be those critical measures of teacher satisfaction, asking a lot of the questions pertaining to what I've recommended here in terms of connecting teachers to the process of setting goals and strategies. I'm also recommending more of a design approach, utilizing teacher expertise when you have professional development, so that it's connected to what their needs are in the classroom. This is something that exists in a lot of school districts, especially school districts of size, as you try to do a one-size-fits-all and make sure you utilize or you're efficient with professional development. Sometimes that leaves out certain segments, or it doesn't connect with teachers the way it should. So a design process utilizing teacher input would be helpful. I mentioned already, develop or enhance an existing technology plan, that everybody's clear on where you're headed and what the philosophy of the use of technology is. The feedback is, I'm already finding through the process of 3 months of interviews, that the forums that Dr. Ritter is conducting is very helpful in terms of that authentic teacher voice. I think other avenues should be looked at in terms of getting teacher input, but that's certainly an important one to continue and to enhance. The development of action plans with strategic plan where district administration shifts to support culture. Central office needs to be seen as more of a support than it does currently. There's a disconnect there. The word "they" is used too much in this district in terms of talking about the group effort, and everybody seems to be kind of aware of that, and I think that's going to be something that is from here on out is going to be addressed throughout the strategic planning process. And more importantly, it has to be embedded in the action plans. It can't be just talked about, because that would be really damaging to the process from here on out. It must be some tangible action plans in place. I mentioned the leadership, utilizing principles and establishing key goals and strategies. And then I'm also recommending an internal communications audit, so there's a better understanding of how staff receives information, how you can establish more effective two-way communication. I think that would be very helpful as well. Okay, and the next slide talks about parent input in terms of their experience. And one reason I wanted to do an additional survey with the phone is to really learn more about the parent experience here, and I think it's very helpful, and it also supported what I was hearing in the design process. And you'll notice that there's some common themes throughout the quantitative data we've collected, as well as the qualitative approach of design, that there's some key themes here that are going to be very important for Joplin to understand, address, and really add voice to moving forward. So once again, it's about creating that highly engaging experience for students. Critical area here, I heard it in the design process, is some consistency with communication with parents, and specifically related to their students' academic activity, their everyday school existence. There's some inconsistency there. That's true in most school districts, by the way. Some teachers are great at providing a lot of information about and access to information about students in terms of how they're performing and things that parents need to be aware of. But it's noted in the quantitative survey as well. It's graded a little lower than it should be here, and something that is an opportunity for improvement. So set a consistent standard on communication with parents, and make sure you have some channels that are clear and existing in terms of their access to information such as grades, whatever is available, but also having some consistent channels established. Emphasis on student-centered effective instruction over just reliance on technology. Often that is a tendency to happen with schools. I heard that voice where they like the technology as a tool, but make sure it's still about the student and his or her individual needs. And it's another common theme, and one that you'll see later on in the quantitative data as well. Consistency of opportunity for customer feedback. So one of my recommendations, just to jump ahead, will be to take a look at providing some additional opportunities for your customers to give you some feedback beyond just the traditional channels, so that they run into a brick wall or they need special assistance, that they know where they can turn and get some additional information. It's helpful for all school districts to do that. Focus on supportive classroom. Once again, when you look at the quantitative surveys, where does the frequent voters and the parents want the emphasis of the district to be? Figuring out a way to support those teachers, get the funds to the classroom, that sort of thing. And that was heard from parents as well. Importance of academic rigor. There's a little bit of that graduation rate discussion going on here, and I know that's important, but that shouldn't be a debate. It should be about rigor across the board, and there should be confidence that all students are being challenged. An emphasis on individual student needs and passions, that goes hand in hand with what we've heard. And then also a clear understanding of key approaches. So once again, what technology is a tool. Dr. Ritter mentioned this earlier. What is the philosophy of the district in terms of that classroom engagement? What tools are in existence? What's the technology plan say in terms of availability of technology, and the use of textbooks if you need textbooks? Those sorts of things are going to be vital in terms of reestablishing the connection and focus on classroom experience. So, some quick recommendations. Make sure you continue satisfaction surveys with parents. We did one here in the last few weeks, and I think it's going to be very helpful to the district moving forward. Make sure you stay connected by sampling those parents. Develop a clear and consistent standard of teacher and parent communication. Consider establishing a customer relations assistance program or process so that in addition to the traditional process of teachers, parents finding out information or needing help, there's some additional services available to them. Continue the superintendent's parent forums, and also recommend taking some of the satisfaction survey data and have Dr. Ritter talk about those things specifically to continue those in clear feedback. Clear mission and vision, which I know is in the process. Conduct a complete design with the high school students, which we are going to do in January. And I think that will provide some critical information in terms of high school experience and the needs and experience of the students there. And then, of course, I mentioned the technology, communicate the technology plan and its role in student learning as prescribed by district academic and technology plan. So just a quick additional notes. As I conducted these interviews, as I moved along, that critical piece about the collaborative support culture, I heard improvements during the course of the time I was doing the interviews. I think there's a more hopeful outlook there with staff to say, we see some things changing. We like the direction you're headed in terms of listening and having that authentic teacher voice piece. So I think that's a good sign because it is really the number one thing that needs to be addressed before you can move ahead and seek to improvement, is to build that trust back. That connection factor is vital. A consistent and confident approach to student learning. We talked about having that clear approach, and I think the data you've seen and shared with tonight is a beginning process of that. I do believe that this is a baldrige term, but the market awareness is going to be very important for Joplin moving forward to say, what do we have to offer here that's unique? What can we offer that will draw people to our area, that will help create even more pride in the school system? And I think your size gives you some leverage, but also I think the exploration of additional things and ways for that to happen would be very important for Joplin. And, I think we've already beginning the process of moving past some of the noise that exists. The trust has to be rebuilt, and I think that's going to be critical. And as we move into the quantitative data, you'll see that we need to start focusing on some of these key communication pieces. We'll take a look at the frequent voter survey first. And the way that we approach this is actually having the respondents assign a grade. Okay, so we ended up with a GPA on these particular items. And we started with the highest grade and went down to the lowest. And as you see, where do the frequent voters who are pretty disconnected in terms of having a direct contact with the school, this is what they pick up from word of mouth, from their watching TV or newspaper. This is the information they're getting about the school system and where their emphasis is in terms of what they think is working and areas for improvement. So,
Mark, would you define frequent voter? They voted in so many of the last elections, or?
Yes. Kelly, remind me which one we pulled from.
2012.
Okay, 2012. So
just the people that voted in 12?
Yes.
Presidential November election.
So this one's really more about, we use the term frequent voter, this is more about the last election that's probably connected to, an experience that we could tie in. So,
Am I misreading something, or are 2 and 3 transposed?
Yeah, I saw it. In sequential order.
yeah.
Three
I'll
is slightly
we'll have
higher
to check
than 2.
that and see. I'll check that for you and see.
Okay.
So on both parent and frequent voter, the providing a safe environment for students ranked the highest. The overall quality of education, we'll check that because it may be flipped, but still up there in the upper ranges. The overall quality of teaching in Joplin schools, planning for the future needs of the district, class size, and now we're going descending order, setting high expectations for student academic performance, teaching the knowledge and skills necessary for success in college, and then workforce, which scored the same, keeping the public informed about important school district issues and policies, and overall satisfaction. 2.10, the district's effort to involve citizens, and this is another common theme that we even heard from parents, is the need for more of an outreach from the school district to involve the community in decision-making and listening, which we're beginning the process of. And of course, spending tax dollars wisely and the open, honest, and transparent. Some work to be done there, obviously.
Is this a 4-point scale?
Yes. So the one thing I would share with you, if you ask most public entities similar questions, you're going to find that tax dollars wisely finds its way to the bottom often in a lot of school districts. That's just the nature of the beast. Yes. Now, having a lower score like that is more problematic, I think, than its location. So, where do the voters get information? Local TV, newspaper, word of mouth. You can see through here it's a mix of the media in addition to word of mouth. You know, a lot of the voters, if they're not parents, would not have a need to go to the website and things of that nature. So, you know, a relationship with the media here, I think, is important, obviously, and making sure that they know the stories that are important as well in terms of connecting to the classroom and engagement. And then the parent survey, once again, highest satisfaction levels around where the teacher and the quality of instruction taking place. I would note number 3, motivating your child to be interested in what they're learning is a great little question to find out, you know, the excitement level around learning. And that's, the teachers and district are to be commended for that. That's a high bar to set. So I think the common theme you see in this particular set of information is the work that needs to be done on establishing a clear focus that the district is working on and spending their money and the resources on the classroom. They're supporting the teacher. There is a disconnect that is very apparent with the discussions that they feel like are being held, which would be focusing on buildings and things of that nature, which, you know, by virtue of what has happened the last few years is actually, you know, to be somewhat expected. But now I think it's apparent that there needs to be a move away from that and a more discussion on that classroom and teacher support portion of it, because it's significant and it needs to be something that is a high priority in the strategic plan. So that, along with reconnecting with the classroom teacher, building some trust and confidence back that you're on the same team and that you are going to listen and connect with their expertise, I think are probably the critical things that we're hearing coming out of this experience thus far. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have about the process or surveys.
Surveys, Mark, there's a category on how you get your information, and it's just called other. Did they?
Is that,
yes.
maybe is that meetings
What's
or?
other?
There's a
mean,
there's a
did we
mix
define
of
other?
those. I don't know if Kelly knows those or not, but I shared those with Kelly. It's a mix of different sources there.
It's a big percent, so.
Well, under parents, that's probably word of mouth, but also, I don't know, I can't speculate.
But it is.
Okay, so, okay,
See,
so
word of
parents,
mouth, word of mouth is not on the parent.
and this was preference, we want to know preference with parents, was regular mail old school snail mail, 45 comments wanted that. Text messages, 19. Phone calls, 15. Send information home with student, 9. Notes from teacher, 4. Mailed newsletter, 2. So those were the ones with the parents. And then with frequent voters, a pretty random mix of.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Basically, on that note, any questions? Nothing. No further questions. We're not ready to have those.
Yeah.
Really, let's just go to the plus delta. Pretty heavy. There's a lot of stuff hits you. I'm sure you're going to be able to sleep well tonight. But anyway, what I would like to know, because this is going to be an ongoing conversation with the board needs to be having conversations around this information, okay? And so that's really going to be a critical piece. And so the policy committee is going to be looking at, so all this is part of that. So what did you like about what we did tonight as far as process now? Not information necessarily, but process, the way it was presented. Any thoughts?
I like how thorough it was.
You'd like the thoroughness, okay? Anybody else?
I like that you gave the good and the bad. It wasn't just painting a pretty picture.
Okay,
It
all
was
the data.
honest.
The number of data points, I mean, 500 surveys is more than I asked a couple of people, and they said, or these 5 people came and talked to me, so the volume of data.
Yep, I think that, yep, that was significant. Any others?
One thing came to mind. I had a preacher one time who said, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, then I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you. I noticed I had the same information on my computer screen and paper and on the wall, so simultaneous.
Yeah.
I appreciated that, I think having a completely objective person, Mark, asking the questions probably gave us a little more clear information.
Yep, that's, okay. So what, any concerns or any suggestions you have for us to be able to improve this?
Is there any way to bridge the gap that Mark and...
Okay. No, that's something I'm going to come back to you with. We have some ideas, and I'll mention a little bit of it tonight after we do the plus delta on how best to approach that from my point of view. That gap is huge, especially between the parent and the frequent voter. And I think the teacher information is going to have a huge gap too. So I think the size of gaps between those groups is phenomenal compared to my other experiences. So we're going to have to put together some strategy. But as far as the process itself, any suggestions other than maybe to shorten, but I don't know how we can shorten it. I mean, you needed all this information.
Is there any key data that you don't yet have?
Yeah, there is. And we shared some of that in those slides, some of that key data that we need to have. The biggest gap that we have is lack of feedback data. We need more feedback data, you know, and really, when we start having an innovative culture, the feedback is just going to drive innovation. But you can't, we don't have any of that right now as far as feedback. And so we're going to have to work on that. All right.
Well, there is one built-in gap between frequent voters and interest and knowledge of the educational process, and that is the most frequent voters are those over 65 who don't have kids in school. So if you're looking at that target, you start out with a disconnect because it's not a natural target for school information.
One thing that I've found out, yeah, I agree. One thing that I have found, and I'll just step into strategy right now. One thing that I have found in Joplin that's unique to any other environment I've been involved in, and that includes my family of 14, okay, is perception drives a lot of things, okay? And so really what needs to happen is there needs to be a step up in communication. And so what's going to happen is, I mentioned it earlier, sites, conversation with teachers, so all staff and teachers will know what's going on. I mean, all staff, not just teachers, but all staff. And then also parent PTOs, conversations with them. And then from that, eventually goes to the community, and then eventually we have conversations with the community about that as well. But the word of mouth is very powerful. And so we need to, when we have those conversations with teachers and staff and parents and the community, we need to have a consistent handout, consistent data thing that they all talk to. So when somebody comes to them and says, well, we're hearing this, wait a minute, this is written the facts. And I found that works. But I think here it's going to need to even be more direct than anywhere else. And so I think we're going to have an ongoing conversation with you as a board, showing you how we're communicating. And so I think there needs to be a major communication plan put together to be able to squash that goal.
Norm, though, on this business about the disconnect with senior citizens who are the largest percentage of frequent voters, I think you have to targeting, for instance, when Neosho was struggling with school bond issues, they started these senior appreciation dinners. They've been pretty successful, actually. They've impacted on voter attitude and familiarity with the district. They're done in school settings. And I mean, I don't think it just happens. I think you have to have a...
Oh, no. Let me give you an example. That's what I mean. In Melville, twice last year, we hosted senior breakfast.
Yeah.
500 seniors showed up.
I mean, you got to do that kind of thing
Yeah,
if you want frequent voters.
And you have the kids serve them. Oh, my gosh. Well, so I always had to use strategy to get their attention. Number of them couldn't hear very
Conversations with the folks in the Neosho because they've been pretty successful with it.
I will. And not only there, and every community is unique, but I think Joplin is definitely unique.
Yeah.
So we're going to, I think the surveys are telling us.
Can you clarify to me, was this frequent voter or voter from just the 2012 presidential election? I'm confused on that.
April 2012 school bond election.
It was voters only from that, not truly a frequent voter over repetition of a thing. Okay.
We tried to find the other ones did not have the numbers.
We didn't have, yes, we didn't have enough consistency in people voting in every election.
Got it.
We found there was 148 people that voted in every election from 2010 to now. 148.
Could, you probably looked at this, narrowing it down to say 5 of the last elections, because I think in a presidential election, you did get more young people voting, and especially since it was the bond issue, we had a lot of parents out voting in that one. So I don't think we can really characterize this as just the older generation voting, because we had parents voting in the bond issue.
Yeah, but I think this one with the average age of 64, that's pretty old.
Yeah.
That's pretty old. There's not too many
Not
parents
as
that are
old.
64. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the audience there, I'm sorry. And I'm part of that, by the way. So
All right.
anyway. But I think it's a starting point for us.
Yep.
All right.
No, thank you.
Anything else? All right.
No, thank you.
Do we have, yeah, there we go. What's next? Real quick. Become a more transparent district. That's our goal, number 1. Communication, develop communication plan responding to stakeholder data. We have to do that. The last one's critical. Okay? Empowering people enables them to satisfy customers on first contact, improve processes and increase productivity, and improve the organization's performance results. An empowered workforce requires information to make appropriate decisions, okay? Thus, the organization must provide that information in a timely and useful way. So in other words, we must, to empower, we're going to have to continue to build our communication, all right? And be far more transparent. All right, anyway, thank you for that opportunity to have that conversation. It's rather long, but I think it was necessary at this time, okay?
That 41% of other, I think is, the door has just been opened really wide for me to make a pitch, again, for some kind of communication piece.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like we saw at the board meeting.
Osage
At
Beach.
the state board meeting.
I don't care where it comes from, but, because there's more than one.
Yes, there
So,
But a communication,
Sally,
Well,
when we
and
get
on
to
the
board
frequent
announcements,
voter
if you
survey,
make
word
a
of mouth
motion
was
to
specific
put it on the
item
next agenda,
on where they
that way
get
we've got it
information,
recorded
but on
and we
parent
keep the
survey,
momentum
word of mouth
going.
wasn't a specific item. So just for reliability.
Well, those are two different populations.
Okay.
Let's go on.
Everyone, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We've gone past, but we'll come back at 9:10 on this clock, whatever time it really is.
Man, that wore me out.
The health and dental care insurance reports that are presented are as of November 30th, the 5th month of the fiscal year. You can see there that there's been a little bit of decrease in claims processing for this month, primarily because the new deductibles kicked in. But the premiums at this point are covering the claims that are being submitted, and that's really it. So the health fund is remaining about the same as it has at a low level, so we're still monitoring that consistently.
Okay.
All right.
Guys, has enrollment changed at all?
It shouldn't have changed from last month, really. It would have changed more from September to October.
Okay, I just was wondering, do we have
And that
more
was
employees
6.
enrolled in it, taking advantage of that, or less? Just curious.
More were, and I don't have the data specifically, so.
On
Do
the,
you have it with you, system?
right, there were, in September, we showed 910, October 913, and November 915.
Okay.
That's pretty close.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay. No action on that, so you want to go to the financial statements?
The financial statements are presented as of October 31st for the 4 months ended. There's not really anything
Yep.
that we wanted to point out.
Anybody
on
have any
this.
questions specific?
I had a question. On
This is the
page-
financial statements?
Statements,
Right, okay.
yeah. On page 2 of the expenditure summary, it shows that there are a couple areas, I think they're special ed, early childhood, Title III, and Title I, that have expended, 300%, 200% of their allotted budget. Are those all reimbursable? So does
Yes,
it
they
matter
are.
that they're over their budget? I mean, is that money coming back in?
The money will come back in, and those budgets have not been adjusted to the allocated amount for the year. They will be in by the December report.
So is that true just for those budgets? Because most of them
Yes.
are at like 25 to 50%, but those accounts are overspent by 200%.
It is, and it's mostly budget adjustments between accounts in there, and adjusting the budget to the actual allocation for the year. That just hasn't been done yet.
And those are the ones that are done in January?
Yes, they'll actually be done in December and presented in the January budget adjustments.
Okay,
And
thank
is
you.
that because that's when we get reimbursements from the state for special ed stuff and title? or-
No, we'll get reimbursements as we go along.
Okay.
Okay. There's no other questions. The enrollment report is next up. That's just a statement of what the enrollment count is. Any questions there?
Okay.
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Pat, were there any public comments?
No.
Okay. All right, moving on. No public comments. Next item up is the consent agenda.
I move approval.
A second.
Ron has moved, Deb is second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, thank you. Next item up, the regular agenda, Bright Futures and Joplin Schools MOU. Dr. Ritter.
Basically, we've processed this through the board several times, and we're really looking for an MOU that's going to help Bright Futures really work independent of the district. And so anyway, I believe there's going to be some adjustments based on the conversation coming out of closed session. And so I would like to, basically, before we do anything, we need a motion and a second with those adjustments included in that motion. And so if somebody could,
I'll make a motion that we adopt it is enrollment of Bright Futures in Joplin schools with amendments that we're going to discuss here.
Norm, do you have those amendments for the general population?
Basically, the amendments that.
Should I second? I'll second
Yeah, you need
the
a
motion.
second,
I'll
yes.
second the
All right,
motion.
motion second now. Discussion.
The amendments is simply the deletion of 2 paragraphs, that I
Right.
recall, which could be done, if I had computer and access, could be done.
Here it is. It's part 5.
Is deleting parts 5A, little a, little b.
You want a motion to amend it?
Right. I think that basically is part of the motion.
That,
Yeah.
she's included
she's
those
saying that
items
she
as her
amends.
original motion.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. Do you want to explain that a little bit more, Norm, for the public?
There is subsections to the MOU. 5 was with responsibility, 5A is fundraising support, and there were some statements made concerning fundraising support. The board thought it was, the discussion thought it was best to eliminate those 2 sections, so that nobody's particularly bound by that in the future. And so that's, like I said, easily deleted, and the bulk of the contract remains the same.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, for clarification.
Yes.
Is the motion to approve the MOU as presented after deleting 5A, little a, b?
Yes.
That was her motion, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And I did want to have some discussion about salaries in that it's not specified in here. Am I correct that it's not specified in here how
Yeah.
salaries are going to be paid?
Yes, let me explain that. The MOU is an agreement between Joplin Schools, Bright Futures Joplin, which is a Missouri nonprofit corporation. The only discussion about, this is a part of the purpose of the memorandum is to create a separation and to identify responsibilities with respect to each entity, and with respect to employees of the Joplin School District who are current employees, they will remain the employees of the Joplin School District under the Joplin School District's absolute control. So with respect to how those employees will be dealt with in the future is strictly under the control of Joplin Schools with no input from Bright Futures.
And then I need some discussion on the action item, letter B, number 1.
Big B, number 1.
Big
little
B, number 1. It says the estimated cost is $94,800. The funding source of this has been the Joplin Schools Activity Fund. Is it staying that way, or what does little letter A saying we're doing? Right here.
In the action item, under little letter A, it says, with approval of this action, Joplin Schools will assume funding for the salaries and benefits of these 2 full-time staff members. And it talks about the responsibilities of the staff members. And then in letter B, it says that the 2016 operating budget will be adjusted to fund the remaining 50% of the year for January 1st, 16 through June 30th at $47,400. This amount will be funded by the existing operating fund balance for the current year. In the original budget, those salaries are budgeted to continue to be paid out of that designated activity fund. The action item as it is written says that they would be moved from the activity funds to operating funds, to be paid from operating funds.
Okay, and my own personal feeling is that we're trying to find money to give raises. And I think Norm pointed out we need 1.3 million. And we had a balanced budget. At the beginning of the year, we gave secretary 7 cents an hour, and then we took it back away. And my opinion is that we don't find $94,800 out of operating fund, that we just continue funding it the way that we have been. So that is That is something that, that's a modification I personally would like to see, not saying that it's going to come out of operating fund because we don't have that money, obviously. We didn't have 7 cents to give the secretaries. We don't have 94.8, so my suggestion is we continue funding it the way we have been funding it, according to letter.
I think we have a motion on the table that does not address this.
It's her motion,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Mrs. Parliamentary
Lady?
lady.
I think we have to act on the original motion as amended
So-
before we can have this discussion.
So the motion is just to approve the
That's right.
MOU.
Right, with
That's
your, with
correct.
the
It's-
amendments.
The motion is not to approve the action item.
Correct.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's
Correct.
correct.
Okay.
There were two separate, like I said, there were two separate
Okay.
mails going down.
Yep.
Okay.
This
I
is
So
just wanted to make
so the
sure I was
motion on the floor is to
clarifying.
approve the MOU minus those 2 paragraphs.
Right.
Is there any more discussion with that? If there's no more discussion, please vote.
Well, I would just,
Oh,
I just want to, I'm sorry, I just want to
Is there
clarify.
discussion? Yeah.
Just for, I guess for people, so they understand, is that this is a complete separation. So Bright Futures Joplin will still exist, but on their own. And they are a resource that we can go to if the need arrives, but they are not the only resource that we can go to if the need
That's correct.
arises. Correct? Okay.
And that the employees then remain Joplin School employees, not Bright Future
That's correct.
employees.
Correct.
Right.
Clarifying that.
That's
Okay.
correct.
I want to make sure
Okay.
that.
That's correct.
I just want to, okay.
All right. No other discussion, please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion passes.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we need a motion, am I
For
correct,
action.
Susan, on the action, on the item?
On the-
Yes, we do need to, the
To be
funding
able to
needs to
transfer.
be decided.
So I'd be happy to
I move-
entertain a
I move
motion.
the action item be approved as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Ron has moved and Sally has seconded. Discussion?
If these employees are district employees, under the direction of the superintendent to determine what their duties are, I think it's the district's obligation to pay them. I think if any other organization were paying them, they would owe a duty to that organization that may not be compatible with the district's desires.
And I would say I believe the district is paying them, just paying them out of the activity fund, but the activity fund is a part of the district.
I guess I would suggest that the donors who may not have known they were paying salaries are paying them.
And to my response to that is that the positions were put in place by the Bright Futures Board, not by this board.
Then how did they go on the rolls as district employees?
Good
Tina,
question.
Tina, can you answer from HR?
They would have gone through the process as any other new employee would have, as far as being an employee of Joplin Schools. The only difference is where the specific account code, what account they were being paid from, that's it.
And when those positions were created, they were being paid for out of that account code, and I personally feel like that's how they should continue.
So
To being paid.
do we have other district employees that are paid by outside entities? I'm thinking we just had a discussion.
So, right, I mean, there would be. So the ROTC program at the high school, that would be one where there's a cost share for the employee. That's just one example, so.
But do we maintain complete control over
Yes,
the employees?
Yes, we do.
And through that understanding, the teacher is under direct control of the district.
But the agency that's funding part of it is supportive of the mission.
It's,
I mean,
yeah, it's a
so
program support.
Would this be the same thing? I mean-
ROTC is a little different because basically ROTC has to approve the salary rate.
There's a grant at the high school for a resource officer.
Yes, that's
I
another
think
one.
that would be comparable
There's
to
another
this.
one, yes. And I also think there's some stipends paid by extracurricular.
Right.
Am I correct? So there's examples.
I'm of the opinion, I agree with Ron. I don't believe that, first of all, the fund that's being drawn on here is a disappearing fund, and not a renewable fund, and it's a spin-down activity. I'm not unaware of any budget process anywhere that uses a spend-down fund as a source for payroll. Never seen it done, don't think it would pass an audit, don't think it's wise, and I would highly recommend identifying that fund source as a source for the payment of employees.
Now, see, when we met initially with some Bright Futures people when we were first elected to the board, they gave us an outline of where their money came from, and this unrestricted money said it could be used for salaries and benefits.
But we're not them.
Well, I'm there, that's what they're saying, so is that not then what the money was able to be used for? I mean, that's how they classified it, as they had the funds set up.
I think that's one of the things we're trying to correct.
Yeah.
Right. And so the last 5 years it's been paid from inside that fund.
Yeah.
And so now, do we make it right by not paying?
Over the last
inside?
5 years, that wasn't a capped fund in a spend-down process either. That was an ongoing fund. This is a different thing. This action caps the fund and sets an elimination process into place. That's an entirely different condition than paying payroll out of an ongoing renewable fund. You can do that, but you can't identify as a funding source for two positions a disappearing fund. You just can't, I mean, can't do it.
But we have had audits over the last 5 years, and we have passed those
Had what now?
audits. You said that you didn't think in an audit it would pass muster,
Well, because we haven't done this because it wasn't a disappearing fund over those years.
Yeah, I don't think were you making an assumption that it was done incorrectly for those first 5
No,
years?
no,
Okay.
I'm saying that if.
You're talking about why that changed,
Yeah.
then it's incorrect.
Correct. Prospectively, this is a non-renewable fund source. It's not sustainable. Plus, you're diverting from the purpose for which the gifts were made to begin with. Because at this point, it's no longer a renewable fund, it's a disappearing fund. So it's categorically, legally, and administratively different.
I think too, what Deb's saying too, and I agree, is that Paul had said our budget was balanced, there was not a penny to be found. So where are we going to find the money out of, you're saying it comes out of our operating budget, so what are we doing without in order to fund those at that rate?
That's a different issue,
There's
though.
also, by this time of year, there's a lot of adjustments that are being made because of not spending money. See, so we have those types of flexibility. With the budget our size, we probably can find some, if not, we turn to reserves, and the board has approved that.
But how do we tell our teachers and staff that didn't get raises because we had no money to give them raises, that we suddenly now can find $94,800, but we couldn't find it for their raises?
I don't think there's any question that that's not an issue here, because the priorities at that time are different from the priorities now, but also the money scenario is quite different from then than it is now. And so I really think it's a different picture. And so, and I think we've already given the message that we're targeting. And so I don't think we have to explain that. I personally don't.
Susan, it's 2.5 months beyond this 930 balance. Do you know what the balance is today, or roughly? It says 368,000.
No, it would be,
Do we have?
we've drawn salaries
Right.
from that, so it'd be
250.
less than that, a little bit.
Okay.
I don't have the current balance.
And the 94.8 is both salaries together for a year,
For
so
1
we're
year.
halfway into the year.
It's
so-
47,
Yeah.
47.4.
Yeah, so 47.4 would be half a year. And then next year, if this was approved to be paid out of operating funds, it would be part of the budgeting process.
Right.
We would plan for that.
Well,
The
could we
future.
continue it for the remainder of this year the way we've been doing it, and then look at it next year? Because that wouldn't deplete the account. There's $350,000 in the account, so could we continue it the way we have been? And then when we make the new budget,
look at making that change then and moving it to operating. And that seems very fair to staff who didn't get the raises. That's a compromise.
I don't think you can do that, because by nature of the change in the separation of Bright Futures from the district, you've altered the nature of the fund, and from that immediate point, there's no flow into it.
So the employees are no longer Bright Futures
No. No.
associates? I don't know
No,
how-
they're Joplin R8 employees, period.
So how does that look separated then? So the two Joplin or 8 employees can't do anything in conjunction with Bright Futures?
Oh, no,
No,
they're
they
community
do.
engaged, but
No, they
they're
do.
spending out, no.
They still work on those initiatives, it's just their district initiatives now, not Bright Futures
Right.
initiatives.
Well, no,
Is what it is.
They're
Bright
And it
Futures
is.
initiatives and activity fund money
But they're
for
being
the same
done
purpose.
in-house is what it is. They're not being done
Right.
by Bright
Right,
Futures,
right,
they're
right.
being
Right.
done
Right.
in-house. Right,
Snack bags.
right, for instance, yeah. So that money is in the district.
For which we had an issue, let's say last month, where there wasn't enough funding to cover all the snack packs. You take out the salaries out of that, now you've got more money for more kids, for more snack packs. And that is more towards what the donors' intents were.
Precisely.
Yep, that nails it.
Yeah, it sends the donated funds to programming, as probably was the intent.
Right.
We would assume that would be the intent of the donors.
With the exception of that Cardinals Cares, which
Mhm.
was specific to pay for salaries to take care of that, everything else was likely intended to go to recipients and not to administration.
And so Sally, when you say for the intent of what it was probably supposed to go to in this MOU, it says for things such as food, clothing. So is that what we're saying the intent is now? No more paying rent, no more, that it's student-specific needs?
That's what it says in the MOU.
Well, what if the rent's for a student, though?
That's really,
But is that our goal, is
There's
to
other
pay rent?
services
Or is
that-
our goal to provide
we're
for the
getting off.
basic needs of
Yeah.
students?
Yep.
Quiet question.
We've got a motion to accept the action item as is that correct, Ron?
Yes.
As presented, and Sally is seconded. So the question has to, the conversation needs to be about that motion that's up there for debate.
Could we amend the motion to exclude next year, projecting out for next year, because that would maybe be based on the realignment and the restructuring that Norm's talking about with this data coming in, and we commit to finishing out this year?
The way I read this, we're only committing to this year at
to me, it's
47.2.
saying that already, yeah.
I think that's what it says.
And 47.4 is all it's committing to for this budget period.
Yeah, it takes care of this, and everything else is thrown into the budget. like
And then it goes on to
Susan
say
said.
that those budget development will consider positions needed for
Right.
the following year.
Right.
So this goes to June 30, 2016 for
Right.
the amount presented?
Correct.
Right.
Yes,
So it's kinda says
for this
that.
budget cycle. I think that's what it already says.
Okay. All right. If there's no other question, please vote.
Can I just clarify before we vote, so I
Yeah.
make sure I'm understanding correctly? What this says is that we're going to no longer pay it out of activity fund, as we have done for 5 years, and we're going to now take it out of the operating fund. Is that what this says? Okay, I just want to make sure I understand before I vote.
Or reserves. I think I've heard that if we can't find it in operating, we would turn to reserves.
Is that written in here? Because
No, it
That's
says
what Nora
operation,
said.
but
Says
that might be
operation.
something we'd have to come back to you if we did that.
Right. To transfer. from
It
one
says
to
this
another.
amount will be funded by the existing operating fund balance
Right.
for the current year.
So-
So that
Current
is,
year.
that means
so that's
out of
changing how we
reserves.
fund these positions.
Yes, it is.
Okay. No more clarification. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yes.
No. So motion passes. So,
Okay, so we have now an MOU with Bright Futures, and basically
if they accept the changes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
It's
two-sided, so.
They have to accept the changes. And then also, as far as moving to the general fund monies. Okay.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, accounts payable. Susan, thank you.
The attached bill list items are payment of materials, equipment, services, salaries, and benefits in both instructional support areas. Total of $4,532,143.31. The administration recommends that the Board of Education approve the payment of these bills.
I move we approve bills as presented.
Second.
All right, moved by Linda, second by Gary. Any discussion?
I just have one question. There's an item for $900 called College Fund Properties LLC, says student need. What is College Fund Properties LLC? It's on the second half. Sorry, Susan, I'll get you a page.
Let's see, I don't,
Susan, would you like me to answer the question?
I don't have that.
It looks like it's for a college
Can you
fund.
answer the question?
I think who owns it? Property, I think.
Melissa, I think can answer the question.
Yeah.
College Fund LLC is the property management company. That's what they've named their company. We paid rent for a family. I think the family may use the revenues from that business for college funding.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think that was their name.
That was the name of the
Yeah.
lease company?
Yes.
The owner of the.
Yep.
And that was the
location.
Bright Futures?
Yes, it was a Bright Futures expense.
Any other questions? If no, then please vote.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Next item on the agenda, network switch upgrade. Mr. Pitcher.
We're looking to replace 3 of our switches that are at the edge of each school, which basically connects to our main internet connection. And before we can really bump the speed up to the outside, if that's what we need to do, we need to get our inside to where it'll make a difference. And that's basically what I'm doing. They're aging switches and they're running on 2-year-old software or firmware, and it's not really doing the
Right.
job it's supposed to do, so.
And this is currently in the budget?
Yeah, it's in my budget.
Right. And you've been here, this is your third time in a row?
What's that?
This is your third time in a row? All right, okay. Just
I was
keep
going to
track.
ask the same question, because you've got 110,000 available in your budget, and so this is 34,000 out of that, but this was as of October. So what did we spend last month, do you know?
That was.
I'm not really sure. I shifted some money around to get it into my cap.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the network switch upgrade.
Second.
All right, motion by Deb, second by Ron. Any more discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. Next item, policies.
Policies. This is all your stuff.
These are all
Deb.
first reading.
It is. We have 2 policies on for first reading. Policy BBC, board member resignation. Policy BHA, board training and development. Do you have questions on those? I can tell you what they're about succinctly.
Why don't you go ahead and do that in the,
BBC basically clarifies when a board member's resignation is effective. board training and development outlines the expectations for board members in regard to training. So orientation, required training by statute that a board member has to go through, and who can provide that training. Basically, that's the gist of it.
Is that a change in any way on the board training?
It did add a few items that the new
Did it?
board member orientation should include. One was the CSIP. There were some very specific items that need to be included in part of the board member orientation. And BBC also, we needed clarification for this, so I don't know how it came up on the schedule for 2015. It was very timely for us, but basically it stated any board meeting and not a regular scheduled board meeting, that it was just any board meeting, and then the resignation letter is official when presented to the board, not voted on and not an official meeting.
That would have been good to have last year.
All right. I would be happy to entertain a motion to,
These are just first reading.
these are,
There's not,
there's no
yeah,
action.
I don't think so.
Right.
Good. Yes, first reading.
Can I make a motion, we approve these policies first reading?
Well, do we need to approve? It's just the first.
Yeah. Okay. And I withdraw that motion.
And then the third item got pulled off of the first reading because the cover sheet shows
Yeah.
3.
Oh, that's right.
There's actually 2. So we-
Because it's a recent, we're going to rescind that, but we
Okay.
need to have the other one ready to go.
Okay, so we just want to make sure it doesn't go down that we approved those 3 and with that cover page. I guess we're not approving
She
anything.
pulled it off the agenda.
Yeah,
It's
it's
on
going
the
on
agenda.
there.
First reading.
Okay.
Well, then I make a motion.
Well, all right.
That we approve these policies on first reading.
So
Okay.
we do need to.
So we do need a mo-
We do need a
we do need a
motion to
motion.
accept.
Thank you. Deb has a motion to approve BBC and BHA. Is that correct?
First reading.
First
That is
reading?
correct, sir.
Okay.
I'll second.
And Jennifer seconded. Any discussion on those items? If no, then please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, that motion passed on the first reading. Thank you, Ms. Waldo. Next item, JHS curriculum, Mr. Cravens?
All right.
Is that you?
Well, Dave Rockers and Carrie Skeda.
Oh, okay.
are here.
Reinforcements?
Yeah, reinforcements. If you have any questions upon the classes that were proposed, we do this annually. Just bring any new courses or changes to courses to the board for approval. We've got celebrities here who are experts in the subject.
We are trying to make sure the kids have the right subjects in front of us, is what we're trying to do.
Is there any, I saw the change from entrepreneurship to leadership in the workplace. Is there a shift in interest, or is that?
No, I think it's going to help us better align some things. Dave had a visit here recently from FTC did from the state with or actually feds with Perkins. And I think what we want to do there is we want to make sure that we're giving our kids the best opportunity to be concentrators and completers as business students. So kids who show a direct interest in business that would have that opportunity to be a completer, and that aligns much more with our career path. So that was part of that issue.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we looked at with that leadership in the workplace was really, it really had a better description for a lot of the things that the students are doing in those fusion classes,
Okay.
so it really fit.
So what's a
that.
concentrator and what's a complete, what are you talking about?
Oh, well.
Try it in English. What are you talking about?
Well, from the federal perspective, a concentrator is a student that has at least 3 credits in a career and technical program. And so, you know, with our block programs, it's very easy because we have students that get 3 credits a year. If they're in a 2-year welding program, they complete 1 year, they're a concentrator. And then those students have to be followed up for placement. They have to be in areas like business. If they've got 3 credits that are in a good scope and sequence, then they have to take a industry-recognized credential test for certification at the end of it. And so it's important that we have a scope and sequence that leads to them being able to be successful in that. And it's pretty simple in auto tech, welding, construction, those areas, but it gets a little more complicated when you've got business and marketing classes And even in our ag program, natural resources, students can take a variety of courses. And a lot of times, the variety they take is going to have a big determination in how they do that assessment at the end.
Well, I got you on the concentrator. Now, what's the completer?
Completer is that they just make it all the way through the program. And with some programs, that's just 3
So a
credits.
concentrator can be a completer, it should be a completer.
It could be. But we do have students in welding that maybe for some reason don't come back that second year, so they could be a concentrator but not a completer.
Gotcha, okay.
And believe you me, it's complicated for us too.
I just like to say how much I appreciate Franklin Tech. I know sometimes we focus so much on college, but Franklin Tech does a wonderful job for the careers because not everybody goes to college. Not everybody needs a 4-year degree, and I appreciate that.
And we found over the years with the technical schools, a lot more of our students are going on to further training, whether it's a 2-year school, a 4-year school, or just further training in their field. So it's a lot different than it used to be 20 years ago.
And I appreciate the focus on the STEM classes. So I have a question, though. All freshman students will be required to take physical science or advanced physical science. How does that align with MAP? When we're testing for science, do 9th graders take a biology test for MAP, or do they take a physical science?
What we've been doing is allowing any student that qualified for the biology course as a freshman to take an exam to try to get into the course if they were interested. And typically that ranges anywhere from about 35 to 50 or so kids each year. We've long been talking about, we didn't feel like we were preparing our kids as best we could, at least that group of students as well, for chemistry down the road, physics, and other courses. Because I think what we've been seeing is some of those students are really interested in health careers. They are, and they're good students, by the way, very good students. But I think we put them a little bit of a disadvantage by not requiring to get that background, and also in terms of down the road for the ACT and just the building blocks to get them ready. So I think it's going to help us down the road with that 35 to 60 student group that we work with, but they're still going to have the opportunity to take biology if they've really got a substantial interest to get right into it as a freshman. But I think what we've been doing is a little bit atypical, maybe, of what a lot of schools have with 100% of our students as freshmen. So I think we want to get in line with that, get them prepped.
Is that a semester or a year course?
It's a year course. It's divided into 2 different semester courses. That one's more in chemistry and one's more in physical science. Or physics, I should say. Physics, based on physics.
I have a question on the Math 125 class. So are you changing that from trigonometry and math analysis to contemporary math?
That is a good question, and Brad Hodson's here from Missouri Southern, and he'll like to hear this too, I'm sure. This came out of a discussion. Actually, it came out of 2 students got us inspired to look at this course, and just I have the opportunity to serve on a committee, a dual credit committee of educators at Missouri Southern because we have so many dual credit courses. And I happened to go to the meeting after a couple of students came in and talked to me about some struggles they were having with certain courses or going right from Algebra 2 to to trigonometry. And sometimes some kids are a little more ready after Algebra 2 and some kids are a little fearful, you know what I'm saying? And so what we had talked about a long time was having another course that maybe wasn't quite college algebra or quite trig in terms of its rigor or its emphasis of certain types of concepts. And a lot of the colleges here in the state have come up and they're working with, I think it's this month, in fact, that they're approving Math 125 as a kind of transition course for college students that may not be going into the STEM. They will not be going into science, technology, engineering, or mathematics in college. Students that are going on to something else in their college life. You know, it used to be years ago, we all had to take college algebra if you went to college. In this course, we looked at it at the syllabus, and it was introduced, and also the ACT required to get in was a little bit lower than the college algebra course. So for students that weren't quite, that needed a little bit more time, this was a good course for them to get into, we felt like. And the chair of the department happened to be at that committee meeting and talked very favorably about it, what it was going to do across the state, how it was going to be accepted across the rest of the state in the public colleges. And I think it would help a lot of our students ease into later trigonometry if they want to, or even college algebra if they want to, but it gives our kids an opportunity to take a course that would allow them to complete a course in college while they're in high school and maybe not have to take any other math in a lot of cases. So, and I think that brings down the anxiety level too for them. And the other great thing about having an instructor on campus is they have 5 days of potential contact with our instructors. No question about it. They're at school every day. Obviously, if you go to college, sometimes you have to go to a tutoring lab, or you have to make appointments with your instructor, and you get all the help you need, but it's right there in front of them here at the high school, and they're used to the teachers. So
this
I'm
is
excited about
so
this.
it's not replacing trigonometry or math analysis?
It's an option.
Is it an NC2A approved course?
It will be.
It will be?
We
Okay.
will be submitting it.
And does it count toward that, so it counts toward that math credit?
Yes.
Then
It'll
for-
count towards the third math credit for high school. While you're in high school, you have to take 3 while in high school at Joplin High. It'll help a lot of students that maybe weren't the very best Algebra 2 students, but maybe just that next notch, and maybe a little bit of fear and anxiety about taking the next course. And it will also help prep them for college algebra or other courses down the road in the meantime. So, and it serves that purpose for college as well.
Okay, last question. How does it work with the ACT? Because on the ACT exam, there are trigonometry questions.
There's a small number of them, and there are. Now, we do have the ACT prep course. We do have ACT prep, well, for lack of a better term, a lady that comes in and helps us and helps our teachers as well. We do have AC USA Test Prep, which is a program that we use in a lot of our courses, and we pull out different types of problems and work with them. Yes, trigonometry, having the course would be better for that small number of questions that are on the ACT, but I think we can fill in the gaps if we're strategic about it.
Carrie, you referenced the committee that across the state, they're looking at maybe not requiring college algebra anymore. So I don't know if this is your question or Brad, but has that been passed? Will this meet the college requirement for their math class? And maybe that's...
Brad might know this more, but it's my understanding that that the committee is meeting this month, and that Math 125 will be accepted by all the public universities in Missouri, not sure about MU, as a course if they're not a STEM focused college student. Does that sound pretty much right? Okay. That's what I heard at the meeting, and that was reemphasized in a couple emails, and I think we're going to find out really quick about that course. But I know that course will be offered at Missouri Southern.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So a side note, you said sometimes your students struggle in their dual credit classes. Just a side note is that if they're in a dual credit class, they're eligible for tutoring from the university.
Okay.
We'll get together on that.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
And I think another thing we want to do with this course is we want to bring down that number of students that go out to any public university in Missouri, especially Missouri Southern, because that's where most of our kids go close as far as remedial math. You know, if they can get that math taken care of in high school, and of course it's a little bit more favorable to them, I think it will help.
No, sounds like you've done a good job.
I would move approval of the curriculum and course changes as recommended.
Second.
Ron and Gary second. No further discussion, please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying so long. Appreciate it.
JHS yearbook payments.
Basically paying a bill, and, yearbook sales dictate sometimes how much, so just, on this one, we're catching up from some money that we owed, and it exceeded the amount to be brought to the board, so we're bringing it to the board for approval.
Only question there talks about there's a multi-year bid before the tornado. How many years was that? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay. Take a look and see. I'm just trying to see when is the next time. Is it next year, then bid goes out, or is it 3 more years, 5 more years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know I talked to Mary
Yeah.
Crane the other day, and there's vendors talking to her, but
Okay.
I don't have a timeline.
And when it's bid, it goes to multiple vendors. It just, Jostens happened to
Right.
get this bid.
They happen to get this one in. Okay. All right, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to pay this bill as a
I make a
presented.
motion, we pay the bill for the yearbooks.
All right.
Second.
All right, Deb moved and Sally second. If no further discussion, please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. Thank you. Motion passed. Thank you, Mr. Cravens. All right. Next item, BOE announcements.
You gave me one.
Yes.
To remind, but when you did that, you didn't realize I had two other things on
Oh,
my
okay.
list at the time. You may regret that. but,
Okay.
The piece that you asked me to remind folks of is to have the communication piece studied, hopefully with a recommendation being brought to the board.
Okay. And so
Technology platform?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
yeah, we talked, this was at the MSBA annual conference, that they talked about different ways to communicate and connect with those within the district. And there were some recommendations there. I think we want to get it on the agenda so that we can have someone take a look at it.
And I really am not promoting this particular program, although I was very impressed with the one that Osage Beach has in place.
Okay. Then maybe that can be part
And
of
it is
whoever-
Blackboard, it's Blackboard supported.
So there's a motion to add that to,
Do you want me to,
do you want to,
do you want me to move that it be part of the agenda?
There you go.
In January?
Yep.
So moved.
in January, so there's a motion, and is there a second?
Don't you have it where just two board members have to agree that it's on the agenda, or do you
Yeah.
have to have a?
No, that's it, you just have to have two.
Yeah. that's what
I
I'm
agree.
Okay.
So don't we just need to tell Jeff and Linda, because they set the agenda, this is something we'd like to
Yeah,
discuss
that's
next
pretty
month?
much, you have to
Well,
have
I
two
think
board
what you're trying to do
members.
is get it in the minutes so we don't lose
In the
track of
minutes,
it.
that's what, so that it's, doesn't get lost in the mix.
Okay, I
That's
withdraw
the-
that motion.
Okay, I accept.
Okay. The second item I'll bring
Uh-huh.
up is something that got discussed at the last parent forum, and it was a conversation about number of days, contact days. And I think that it may be a piece of what we were introduced to tonight,
It was.
but I would hate for it to get lost in the shuffle. I think it's critical that we look at the number of contact days that our district spends.
Not just minutes, but days. Yeah.
So Sally, you're talking about the number.
I'm talking about 165 days.
Calendar.
A couple of years ago, we went to a minute instead of away from days, and so what you're saying is you want some discussion about moving back to the number of days.
Well, when I look at our calendar, it's 165 days, and every area
Used to be
district is
134.
well into the 170s. And
That
We
happens.
should
and-
set up a
calendar
calendar
is-
soon anyways, right? Next month or something?
It's
So
February?
very
I think it's
soon. Coming up
February.
soon.
It's February, I think, isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
probably a good
Yeah, it's
time to
February.
have that
School
conversation.
calendar, this is new, it hasn't been finalized, but it's a year to glance what the major board topics, so February
Well-
will be the calendar. But we do need to,
Address it in
I
January.
Address it,
I don't
so-
know that my information is correct, but I understand that we took some days away to accommodate moving into a new facility.
That's correct.
Added
And
minutes.
they never got
That's
put
correct.
back.
right.
We increased the
And-
length of the day by so many minutes,
But,
but
And
Yeah.
that made
Yeah.
up for, yeah.
2 weeks for
You're right.
10 minutes.
But I've
doesn't-
spent enough time in the classroom, you take 10 days away.
Yeah.
you-
I think also we need to, and I don't know if anybody in the room was on that committee, but there was a committee in the district, and I think we really would be remiss if we didn't include them on the workings of this.
and that goes hand in hand with the
Because they had
talks we're
some
going to have
data.
about salary increases
And-
too. That needs to be a part of that discussion.
They looked into that.
Okay, and then the last item is more a question, because I don't want to make the decision by myself. But I am concerned, I've asked the question whether or not we have a diversity council within the district, and I think we do not. And I'm not sure that that's the way to go. I've kind of been mulling this over, and I think that we ought to entertain the idea of a diversity council, but I think it may need to include people within the district and within the community as well.
Diversity
What's the-
in what?
What's the purpose?
Well,
Cultural?
you look at some of the things that are going on across the nation, and the communities that have had the difficulties didn't have a plan. or they didn't give people a voice. And people will always feel better when they have a voice. And we've got diversity in our community, no less than in other communities. It may be racial, it may be religious, it may be sexual orientation. But I think we need to look at having, we need to decide whether or not we want to have some way for folks to express concerns or discontent.
That should be really, that really should be something that's generated from the schools, from the teachers, from the kids, from the parents, that type of conversation.
It needs to be more than a student committee, though.
Yeah.
And it may
Now-
need to involve the whole community.
Yeah, and I think
And we may
that's-
be the genesis.
Yeah, that did come up at the, I think Melissa was part of that conversation with One Joplin, and diversity was part of that conversation with the chamber. And I think you're right, I think that's where it needs to come from, and then we respond to that as partnership with that. Otherwise, I think usually in the school system, it comes from the high school level with the diversity, with the students. But I think community-wide.
I think it needs to be broader based than that.
Yeah, and that's where I think we need to report back really what's happening with One Joplin. I need to do that. I'm part of the steering committee for that, and so diversity is part of that conversation. So I can, as that rolls out, I can bring that back to the board. So.
Any other board announcements?
I had
Okay.
one thing I'd like to ask at the next board meeting, if we could have a follow-up on the safety, school safety.
Oh, sure.
There was an issue today with the school district, and so I'd really like to be more proactive in making sure that our schools are safe than just waiting. So if we
Yeah.
could maybe add that and get an update as to where we're at and kind of a plan in place. If we could discuss that
Yeah.
next meeting too.
I would agree with that. I mean, that's.
I would too, because I'd like to see equity. Some of our students have an extra layer of protection that not all of our students have.
Right.
And I think all of our students should be protected equally.
I completely
And
agree.
I think right now we look at the reaction, we have one course of action is to, let's say, lock down, and the other one is the Alice. And that's more of a strategic shift. And I think we need to have the discussion, what are the pros and cons of each, and see, are we, with the change in all the buildings we've had, does the plan that we made 10 years ago still fit the environment today?
The number one thing I want to remind you in the surveys from the parents is they feel very safe. But now there's some language in there as far as bullying. So it seems to me it might be more around relationships than it is about the facility itself, because they feel very safe. That was their number one thing. That was the highest grade that they gave us. So, but I think we need to, make sure that's a lock. But I just want to remind you that that's what.
One of the good things.
And our students feel safe too, except for the bullying. Okay, so.
So
I just
in the
made ask for
presentation that you
follow-up.
want, maybe we need to have that, if you could send your concerns to Jeff, because I think whoever comes to present will want to know what you're going to want them to address.
Sure.
And I think the
That'll help.
safety addresses Sally's issue that she brought up about the diversity and,
that's the bullying.
do they all
Yes,
feel
that's-
safe and do they feel valued? And it ties right in together, I think, both of those.
Yeah.
I'll send those questions to
Yeah.
Jeff and I so that we can have that, so it can be a little bit
We'll-
appointed to
Yep.
answer your questions.
Okay.
Presentation.
Any other board announcements? If no other board announcements, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Gary? All right.
You too, Grandpa.
Please vote.
Yes. We should celebrate.
Sally?
You're the grandchild.
Deb? Yes.
We should celebrate that Norm has a new grandchild.
Yes. Yes. Yes, adjourn?
Yes.
Gary, yes?
Say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Linda, say yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Have a great
Okay, I got
Christmas break.
somebody for trash bags.
Trash bags.
Remember, I'm heading.